All righty. Good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started here. We've got a few things to go over. If you're just joining us and you're unaware, we are monitoring a low risk of potential severe weather tomorrow in the state here. Go ahead and dive in here first and foremost, starting like we always do here with the SPC outlook here. We do have a level 1 risk, so the lowest possible risk ticket issue. It's called marginal level 1 out of 5, up toward 96 from Grand Rapids, Alma, Flint, Detroit, down to the border of Ohio and Indiana in dark green. North of that is in a light green contour that signifies just some general thunderstorms. Nothing severe up there is expected, but in that dark green zone is the area of interest. What are the hazards and what are we thinking of regarding this? First and foremost, damaging winds, same exact areas from Grand Rapids, Alma, over to Flint, down to Detroit, down to the border of Indiana and Ohio. Hail as well, a risk tomorrow. And all these are low-end risks, the lowest you could possibly go. We call them 5% risks. And then also, last but not least, they did introduce a tornadic risk here for tomorrow for the green areas, and it's the lowest risk you can possibly have. It's called 2%. There in green, anywhere again from that Grand Rapids over to Alma, over toward Flint, down to Detroit, and then also down to the borders of Indiana and Ohio. All right, so overall risk here is highest off to our south. If I were to go ahead and show you guys the risk tomorrow, you'd see an enhanced risk is sitting off to our south across portions of Indiana, Illinois, down through Kentucky. So we are at the very top, the northern end of this risk area. So the reason for that, dive into some models here, switch over here to the HRRR. What happens tonight is going to heavily dictate what happens tomorrow. What I mean by that is as we get these storms forming out in Oklahoma tonight, go ahead and zoom out of this just a minute. There we go. We're going to see these pop up over Oklahoma. They're going to push our direction. They're going to move through tomorrow. This right here is at approximately 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. We're going to have this line pushing in. It's going to move through. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Behind that is what's going to be our attention is going to be turned to what's behind that, because behind this initial line, the overall instability is sucked out of the atmosphere. All right. That's what the models are at least saying right now. Okay. With this line moving in really late, it's not going to allow time for daytime heating to fuel the atmosphere to get these storms up and going. So that is our current thinking, is that we're going to have that line push through early to mid-afternoon. It's going to take our instability out of the atmosphere, and in turn, our severe risk will be very low tomorrow. That is our thinking, all right? But I will say this. If by some chance 2 scenarios could happen, all right? Number one, this line is not as widespread or should I say long lasting. If we can clear out behind it early and get sun to heat the atmosphere to get our instability up, we may have a severe risk develop. That's scenario 1. Okay. Scenario 2 is if this line slows down enough, we may be able to build instability out ahead of this. With the later arrival towards like 4, 5, 6 p.m., that may allow time for the surface out ahead to destabilize just a smidge to get some type of significant, not significant, but strong to severe storms. All right. Putting it all together, though, and looking at our instability overlapped here with our wind shear, we're going to get the colorations here where the brighter orange and red and yellows and purples and pinks are what we really would like to see for severe weather. So we're going to look at the 18Z here. We're going to go back. We're going to run this through. This is at 2 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to see the area of higher colors is way to our south. All right. Here's 3, here's 4, here's 6. We see it just starting to nudge in here with just greens here. So not a very good environment, but still just kind of catches your eye just a smidge. Push that through. Here's 7, here's 8. It just kind of barely creeps up into southwest Michigan, even parts up here toward, we're going to say, Ludington, Mount Pleasant area. So there's a chance we may destabilize just a bit, but not really enough to be overly concerned for that severe weather threat. All right. Now, scenario 2 is what the NAM3 model is showing us. And that is destabilizing just a bit out ahead of that line. Moving through the time frame once again, here is 3 p.m. Here's 4. We see some orange colors start to show up in the vicinity of that line here across like the Fort Wayne area. And if we move this into the evening hours, it does try to creep up into southern Michigan there. So that is your second scenario. Okay. Overall takeaway from this should be overall risk tomorrow is currently low. But if we can get instability to build in, however it happens, if it's ahead of that line or if that line doesn't materialize as we think, if we can get instability to happen, the wind shear and overall spin tomorrow is supportive of severe weather, including tornadoes. Okay, let's be honest. So main threat would be damaging winds, large hail, and a couple tornadoes being possible, but it's a big if because current thinking is it's not going to materialize. Okay, want to highlight that. That is all I have to share with you guys. The main time frame of this will be probably roughly that afternoon to evening time frame, maybe a bit later than that. If we can build an instability behind that line, we could see a bit later developing threat there. But overall thinking, we're going to say 3 p.m. at the earliest, and we're going to say 11 p.m. at the latest. Okay, it should fall between that time frame. We can't get too specific just because we're not, our confidence with this overall thing is low. So we're not getting too specific just yet. But it should be an afternoon, evening time frame. It should not be an overnight event. All right. That's all I got to share. It's a pretty straightforward forecast. Overall risk is low, but in the event that we do get instability somehow, some way to build in, then that risk will develop with all hazards being possible. But again, big if.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth making a timing map for.
Yeah, we debated going live here at all just because our thinking is not very high on this overall threat tomorrow, but we did just to be sure. So don't expect timing maps, don't expect anything like that. We're not going to try to get this and overhype it, so to speak, but we do want to mention it just in case. I do think if there's going to be a risk at all, I would more so bet on it being closer to I-94, whether that's Kalamazoo, Ann Arbor, Detroit. I think those general areas and then south of the border is going to be the most area of concern tomorrow, if there's going to be one at all, just because the instability is going to be highest further south. What do you think, Joel? SPC watch party tonight for the members or no?
I mean, I'll probably be up.
We may do it. So
watch party / model run party.
Yeah, let's talk about it after. We'll get a post out if we're going to do one to you guys who are subscribers, whether that's on Patreon, YouTube. If you guys you don't know, if you guys are members or subscribers to the page, we are trying to start SPC watch parties at 2 a.m, as well as model watch parties to kind of get new data. Something we do for our members and stuff like that. So if you're new here, if we do it, we'll let you guys know via the community on YouTube, or we'll make a post directly to our Patreon members and our Facebook subscribers directly. So where are we on the La Nina switchover? We are neutral, last I checked, and we are going into La Nina very soon. But remember, it's going to take about a month or two for that to translate over into the jet stream patterns and stuff like that. So the effects are not going to be immediate. They're going to still linger.
And another thing with the late night live stream for members only is we're not withholding information. We're just kind of watching the stuff as they come out, and then we'll post it, what we find or what comes out on the page as soon as it comes out. So just a way to kind of talk and throw some emojis around like we have in the past. So
it seems like there's also a lot of interest to watch it live and get our opinions and reactions in real time. I think that's the main gist of it. But yeah, like Joel said, everything that we're posting or going to do is going to be posted publicly as well. We get this question so much, Joel. Do we sleep? Do we sleep at all?
Yeah. I'm just a night owl.
We do. It's been busy though. Let's be honest. It's been really busy.
Mm-hmm. I regularly see 3 a.m.
So historically speaking, this is on a historical basis only. When we switch from that El Nino to La Nina, the neutral phase, into the La Nina, severe weather historically slows down. Well, that's going to happen or not, we'll see. But once we dive a little bit further into La Nina, we should start seeing a little bit of a downtrend in our severe weather. So I'll pull the SPC map back up just to kind of leave it up here. Again, tomorrow's risk, for those of you just joining, is pretty simple. The risk is very low. It's highly, highly conditional on instability building in at any point in the day. Main time frame, we're going to say 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And again, highly conditional. Right now, we're thinking that instability is not going to fill in just because we're going to have morning rain, cloud cover, stuff like that. So we're going to watch it close. Current thinking is low severe risk. But if we get instability, we're going to have a risk for all hazards, including tornadoes, as wind shear tomorrow. If I'm being honest, if we had a decent amount of instability tomorrow, we'd be concerned. Okay. Like if we're being honest, the wind shear looks really good tomorrow.
Mhm.
So the only thing that's going to take this and take a step back here is if we have the instability, the lift that matches with that wind shear. It takes more than just shear to get severe weather. The start of rain. So there could be a couple of rounds tomorrow. The initial line of precip that we're going to watch is going to move in. Here is 2 p.m. in Southwest Michigan there. Here's 4 p.m. Here's 5, 6. It says on this model 6 p.m. Ann Arbor. And then as we get into the evening hours, we may see additional development, additional rain fill in across the state. Okay, so 6 p.m. or so, maybe a bit before that. We're going to update probably tomorrow morning. We can't be too sure with this just yet, but expect it roughly that mid-afternoon time frame.
Well, what you're showing, right, or that frame you were just showing was 7 a.m. Where it was 11Z Monday.
Yep,
So
that's yeah,
that's our parade.
yeah. We are doing a parade in Jenison, Michigan tomorrow at 9 a.m. for those of you who want to come out and say hi to us. But Joel,
It's 2 days from now.
oh, sorry, yeah, 2 days. I keep saying today's Sunday. But if we're looking at this, Joel, 9 a.m., Jenison is on the back edge of that, so we may luck out there.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz, thank you once again for gifting 5 memberships. Looks like Patrick, Jessica, Detroit, Kim, and Don were gifted those memberships. So welcome to the page, guys. Thank you, Jess, as always. I see a couple questions here if we think it could get upgraded to a slight risk. The only way this gets upgraded is if confidence increases dramatically and there being instability, which is a possibility, but right now we're not seeing anything that suggests it. So low chance of that happening. Is anybody else's allergies acting up? I've just been dripping the entire time I'm sitting here.
I was playing pickleball today, and the cottonwood trees were it was like snow out there.
Oh, man. I don't know what it is, but I'm just drippy all day today.
Alpha, are you asking what the difference between 18, 19, 20Z is, as in like what's the radar look like, or just like what does that mean? I will say what it means is that 18Z is 4 hours. So that's like GMT time. So that's like England time, and they're 4 hours ahead of us. So that 18Z translates to 14 o'clock or 2 in the afternoon, and then so on and so forth.
Yep. 18 is 2, 19 is 3, 20 is 4.
Yes. And it changes spring and fall every year when you have daylight savings time.
Yep. So in wintertime, that would translate to 18Z would be 1 p.m.
5 hours difference.
Yep. And then 19 would be 2, and then 20 would be 3. I had to kind of think about that too, because my mental status is in summer mode right now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a new chair? No, I did not. I did not actually, but I do have one on order. So
there you go.
I'll have it here. Should be the first week of June. Unfortunately, it wasn't 1 day shipping with Amazon, so I had to wait.
Alpha says, what about when you select mile run on the left? So that is what time it starts at. So right now, the 22Z model is currently like running, which means it's pulling in new frames because 22Z is 6 p.m., I believe. Yeah. 6 p.m. So that's your 6 p.m. update. So the 21Z run on there was your 5 p.m. update. So the HRRR has a new run every single hour. However, every 6-hour interval, so like at 0Z, 6Z, 12Z, and 18Z, is when you have like the longer runs. So it shows more time periods instead of just like the next 24 hours. It shows like the next 60 hours, for example. So coming up here at 0Z or just past 8 o'clock, you'll have 0Z run come in, and we'll be able to see 2 to 3 days in advance as compared to, what we're seeing right now, only 24 hours in advance. Which is why we have to keep going back and looking at that 18Z run, because we don't have the 0Z yet.
Yep. If we go to 2020, or for example, 22Z goes out to 17 or 18 hours, technically, it's out to 17. So tomorrow at 11 a.m., this is what the model is saying.
Mm-hmm. That's as far as it goes.
Yep, that's as far as it goes. So we have to wait to get a better picture. Other models don't load every hour. For example, the NAM. The NAM only loads at those main time frames of 00Z, which is again 8 p.m., 06 is 2 a.m., 12Z is 8 a.m., and then 18Z is 2 p.m. So this is also why we kind of wait until we like have afternoon model runs come out, because most of those come out roughly 2 to 4 p.m. So a lot of our forecasts come after that time frames, after we looked at all these models that come in. So thank you for coming to our TED Talk in models. I will say as well that a couple of models, we talked about the instability being there, being not there. A couple models this afternoon, especially the 21Z wrap, is trying, keyword here is trying to bring some instability close to that border. So we're going to watch it. But right now, I think the heaviest is going to stay well off to our south here. And again, if you guys have friends and family who happen to live down here across central and southern Illinois, Indiana, or even down into Kentucky and in Tennessee, tomorrow does look decent for not only damaging winds, but also strong tornadoes down there. So if you guys have friends and family who live down south, give them a text, let them know what's coming tomorrow or potentially coming. Comparing that last run there, Joel, 15Z, so 11 a.m., the bulk of that's just about to enter northwest Indiana. If we compare that to the 18Z here at 11 a.m. tomorrow, it looks pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing really significant has changed between the 18Z run and the 22Z run. So it looks like we're pretty much still on track here.
Red Dozer, that was either Jazz or Julie that probably gifted you the membership.
I believe somebody else gifted like 5 or 10, so maybe them as well. I forgot their name. But yeah. Ow.
I think it might be Kevin who's watching right now.
You know what? I think you're right. I thought it was like Kyle or Kevin or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Any further questions here? It's a pretty straightforward forecast. Shouldn't be on here too long.
You want to throw the map up again one more time?
Sure.
Kendall just jumped in. There's your SPC severe weather outlook map for tomorrow. Slight risk up to the border, marginal for everyone, pretty much south of 96. Well, we'll say along and south. So it kind of overlaps the points north up towards Elma and Cedar Springs. Over to Flint as well. Flint, you're on the edge of that marginal. Again, severe weather can exist outside the risk zones. We mention this every time. So just kind of be on alert, even if you live just outside of it. We have seen southerly shifts over the past couple updates, so it is possible we see a little bit more of a southerly shift, but next update isn't until 2 a.m. tonight, which is when we may have our watch party. And we'll post the 2 a.m. update on Facebook page as soon as it comes out.
I see a couple questions in here. What's up, Isaac, first and foremost? Jessica asks, what do we cover on watch parties? So 2 things primarily: models, new data coming in, and SPC outlooks. So 2 a.m. is when SPC is due. So that'll be roughly the time frame we would go live if we did.
1:30. We usually start at like 1:30 because sometimes they release it early.
Yep. Let's see here. Any chance of the risk decrease? I think you just covered that, Joel. It's a possibility, Jay. Yes, the Patreon link is on the Facebook. I can also drop it in chat here for you guys.
We have so many links now, Ryan. We might have to get a link tree.
We should. Somebody suggested that as well a couple days ago, and I think that's a great idea. Go ahead and share this into where you guys at, YouTube or
Facebook or YouTube.
Nicole is on Facebook. So I go to Facebook and drop that in chat. There you go. Link is in chat there for you if you want to join our Patreon. Also put the Facebook subscriptions link in there as well for you guys if you're interested in joining the Facebook subscriptions as well. But it's the same thing. You guys get the same content no matter if you're on Patreon or Facebook or YouTube. Some are just easier to read than others. For example, Patreon's easier to read our forecast, but Facebook comes with a live chat that's pretty active. So it's really you're dependent what you really prefer, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I like the question by Skylar. How does SBC determine exact severe weather risk lines from marginal to enhanced? That's a really good question. So the whole process of making a forecast starts with your balloon launches, which happen at certain National Air Service offices twice a day, which is 12Z. So that would be, or no.
12Z,
12Z and 0Z. So that would be 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. every night. So I know Detroit does them. And I believe Gaylord does, but oh, perfect. You have them pulled up. So Ryan is pulling up the map of where all the balloon launches are every day. And they use this data as well as all the other data, all the weather balloon launches from around the globe twice a day to figure out what the upper air pattern looks like and what like the mid-level pattern looks like and just all those different levels of the atmosphere where you have like the jet stream, which is a huge driving factor for these storms, and kind of puts together forecasts based on all of what we're seeing. And those weather balloon launches are responsible for creating these models. And so when we're looking at these models, it's a direct correlation to what the data we have received from the balloon launches earlier in the day or here coming up at 8 o'clock. So it's a really cool kind of process. And it's kind of just a dive deep into the thing. So when we look at those, storm or the supercell composite maps, SBC kind of uses those as well. They obviously have their own little twist on it. They kind of look deeper into things like theta E gradients and stuff like that. So we kind of just break it down, make it a little bit easier for you guys to understand, but there's a lot more in-depth analysis and stuff that the SBC kind of does behind the scenes just to kind of determine where the percentages actually line up. Again, these are just percentages. You should always take, extra precautions when you are in any severe weather risk zone, whether it's marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and obviously high. Again, all percentage based, but it's really cool to see the process behind it.
And there are also some days that you may not be in a severe risk and still get severe weather. We had 3 days last week that were like that. And just today in Pennsylvania, they're in a risk over there, but there's actually a couple tornado warnings with no tornadic risk at all. So some days you can still have severe weather if you are not in a risk or, certain types of severe weather. So that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the recent solar activity is affecting SBC's data? No, not at all. Not at all. How's Coldwater and Hillsdale areas looking for tomorrow's weather? So you would technically be in an area of more interest. However, I think that the overall risk is low no matter where you're at in the state. But again, the further south you are, the better your chances become if we can build instability in, just because we kind of expect it, if it builds in, to build in highest across southern areas for like 94 south. So yeah, Coldwater would be an area of concern, but it is a low concern at this point. If that changes, you'll see us update tomorrow and throughout the day. All right. And this risk would definitely catch our eye tomorrow if we can build instability in, just because the wind shear is looking pretty good tomorrow. So if we have some confidence tomorrow morning that we have instability, we're going to up our wording, probably more than likely up our wording. But it's gonna be a process because we just can't really predict it this far in advance. A lot of moving factors, mainly what's happening out to our west now in Oklahoma, because that's going to push our way overnight and into the morning hours. That's going to heavily dictate how tomorrow pans out.
Yeah, and our position relative to the low is actually kind of a huge, I guess you could say, help because we have a lot more helicity near us and a lot more turning, obviously, with the wind shear being tomorrow. So you'll have, winds pretty much out of the east at the surface, and then you kind of turn as you get up in the atmosphere and you have winds out of the west pointing to the east, blowing across at probably over 100 knots tomorrow. So again, we will have that spin, and we'll just have to see how instability plays out tomorrow. That's kind of the huge question mark at this point when we're looking at SLIM. So shear, lift, instability, moisture, you're going to have a lot of lift. The shear is definitely going to be there. Instability lacking, and your dew points, they're going to be in about the low 60s. So it's a decent amount of moisture there tomorrow. But again, instability and moisture. So the back end of your SLIM acronym that we use all the time is kind of what is the huge question marks for tomorrow. Lansing is considered south central, I would have to say. You can see it there on the map in the green. We unfortunately we are not in charge of making weather. We're just the messengers, I guess you could say. Again, the risk goes into effect at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. But again, we won't see the storms until after lunch.
I was going to try and get an overlay in here for the SLIM acronyms, but I can't find one that's a PNG or JPEG.
It's going to be Google. It won't let me become a member on Facebook. Yeah. If you have the Facebook app, it's probably easier to do it on that. Not sure about if you're watching from desktop. Rainy tomorrow. Definitely after 3 for Lake Orion. Right? That's how it's pronounced. Cool.
Yeah.
Coldwater is southern Michigan, right there, where 69 crosses into Indiana. The Slims being shady, that's about the best joke I've seen so far tonight. Thank you, Julie. If we had a Facebook post out, that would get like 100 likes right away. If only people knew.
I'm on it. No, we post that and half of our following wouldn't even know what we're talking about.
Huh?
We always try to educate you guys, but there's always going to be a large percentage of you guys who don't really read too many of our posts. So we try to keep it as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm. Again, anytime really after lunch tomorrow is when we can expect the first line to come through. And then if we do redevelop in the afternoon, it would probably be around the dinner time, depending on when your dinner time is, of course. Probably after 6, I would have to say. But yeah, we're not making a timing map right now because there's a lot of uncertainty.
No, Tanya, we are good for the night. So sleep well tonight. There's really no risk of anything at all.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these questions are like asking about certain cities and stuff. So it is important to kind of know where you guys are looking at a map, especially when we're doing severe weather coverage. Obviously, we're not doing severe weather coverage tonight, so we can help you out with that. But again, knowing where your county is on this map is a huge help for both us and yourself. That way, it kind of gets rid of the age-old question, will my city be in the risk? And that way, you'll never not be weather aware. If that makes any sense.
It's actually, I found it a little easier finding where your city's at's great, but counties work just as well because
Mhm.
usually what happens with these warnings is they're more so kind of county based. And also with these maps,
Mhm.
if you're in a county, you're likely going to be in or out of that risk. You're going to be closer. It's more less specific, I guess. If you don't know your city where it's at, find your county. It's a little bit easier.
Mhm. Yeah, because when we have our auto or our ready warn post automatically post, I believe it's just counties.
Yep.
Sometimes it posts the cities, but if there's like no, cities in their path, it'll just default to counties. I believe there's a weather spotting or training virtual coming up here in the first week of June. I saw it somewhere. I don't remember who posted it. It was on a previous live stream.
Like a
My,
like a Skywarn or
yeah, I think there's a virtual class coming out. It's like the last one of the season, but it's virtual.
yeah, I checked that like 2 weeks ago. I didn't see any upcoming classes because people are messaging us asking about that.
Mm,
Unless it was just kind of popped up randomly. I haven't seen anything though.
yeah.
Usually they're in spring, so unlikely. They are on YouTube though. If you type in Skywarn spotter training, although would highly recommend going to in person class just because it's better to get the full experience and teaching experience
Mhm.
rather than watching somebody on YouTube. So
Absolutely. Random question often feels like storms go right around us. Is there a reason for that? Or is it just confirmation bias? You want to take that one or you want me to?
I'll take it. But I can kind of make this into a comical, not really a joke, but if we had $1 for every time we heard people say that for their specific city, we would have no severe weather in Michigan at all. I can think back to Lansing having a tornado warning already this year. Like the weather doesn't go around certain areas. Could there be some areas within the USA that the climate or that localized area could affect weather, like mountains or valleys? Sure. Here in Michigan, I am not aware of any of that being the case. I will say that there is some lake influences. So, like if you live close to the lake shores, like Lake Michigan, Lake Erie,
Mhm.
sometimes you can have better wind shear with southeast winds coming off Erie. Sometimes it can kill the threat. Think back to May 7th. If you live in like southeast Michigan, the only thing that stopped severe weather in southeast Michigan back on May 7th was Lake Erie because the cold winds off of Erie didn't allow unstable air to push in. So, things like that, yes. Things that drive storms around certain areas, no.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot happening in like the mesoscale map. So sometimes when we have back to back to back, severe weather or just general thunderstorms rolling through, you can have it where like it runs out of instability or any other driving factors like a front like just stalls or something like that and it never gets to you. That happens all the time. So you can go like 3 events in a row where no rain falls at your location. So it's definitely a confirmation bias, I would say. But yeah, what Ryan said about the lakes, you get that stable air mass and it kind of just kills it in some locations. And then during the summer, I will also mention with the lake breeze, that lake breeze can get pushed in so far inland that places along the lakeshore don't get rain a lot of the times during the summer. It's just usually if you live along and east of 131.
And the same is true there in winter too. Sometimes being close to the lake doesn't allow you to be cold enough for snow to fall. So sometimes if you're close to the lake shore, you may have 0 inches of snow or just a dusting, whereas you go 2 or 3 miles to your, east or west or whatever, you're going to
Mhm.
have a foot. So there are some things like that do exist here in Michigan. But to say that, for example, Lansing is in a bubble where storms just split you all the time, no.
Welcome to the chat, Instant Karma. Good to have you back in here. Yeah, all the in-person classes are usually reserved for February, March, April as well, mainly because it's kind of right before peak season kind of takes off. But I mean, this year we've kind of already had a little bit of our peak season to boot with that. So we've kind of had Skywarn classes here and there within these severe risks.
No severe tonight, no storms tonight. You are all clear. Tomorrow is the topic of discussion. So we are not live for tonight. We are live for tomorrow. And we are going to go live again. If they're severe, obviously we'll be live tomorrow, but we do a weekly stream on Sunday evenings. So tomorrow evening, come back for that. We'll talk about the upcoming week. temperatures, precipitation. If there's any storm systems to watch for severe or anything like that, we'll let you guys know what we're seeing. I have not dived in too far, so don't
I
ask
have a
now.
little bit.
Oh, have you?
I've seen the forecast for next week. So climatologically speaking, next week supposed to be a little bit cooler, so we get a break from our Florida subscription a little bit. So we might have, for those who are looking for rain, next week might be your week. We'll have some May showers, bringing June flowers, I guess. I mean, kind of late, but yeah, high 60s I think right now is kind of the general gist across the board for most of the week. That will probably change a little bit here and there, but again, we'll dive into that tomorrow night with more mile runs that are coming in.
Yes, Isaac, it can. It can sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a project going on this summer through CMU and a bunch of universities on lake breezes. And so we'll get the data back probably in August or September of some of the data we're going to see of how boundary interactions happen and stuff like that. So it'll be really cool to see what comes out of that. It's a huge project, and maybe we'll get to understand lake breezes a little bit more after that data is shared. It's kind of cool what they're going to be doing. They drive from like the lake shore to Lansing like every single day and take measurements.
Really?
Launch weather balloons, stuff like that. Yeah, that starts in July.
Is anybody experiencing mosquitoes?
I haven't been in the Grand Rapids area yet.
See Julie making a comment about mosquitoes. I haven't had too many problems with them yet. Yes, we do cover winter storms.
It's not quite our bread and butter, but we still cover it.
Yep.
We do briefings. We sometimes send chasers out. I mean, I might be out every once in a while if I'm driving from here to there. The study is, I believe, a month. I think it's just the entire month of July for that project. I don't know what it's called off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, ticks are bad. I can tell you guys that. Ticks are tremendously terrible. Yeah, Jessica, just last year, Drew was on. No, it was Ben. Our partner chaser Ben was on Lake Michigan, and he got a water spout while it was snowing. So yeah, we do see stuff while we're out in the wintertime. Thunder snow, yeah, that's a big one.
Yep,
we had a lot of that last year. That's always fun.
We have that up at Central because of the wind turbines, actually. Not really sure what the science and stuff is around that, but when you have those tall metal objects out there, it's in the middle of the fields, and you have heavy lake effect snow bands going over it with just enough instability, you can get lightning strikes with taller objects. It's really cool. No one's really done a study on it yet, though. Maybe it'll be the next CMU thing.
You guys did great this winter. We did. We only got, I think, one forecast that was off, and people let us know. People are always okay. The thing that always gets me about winter forecasting is when we forecast, for example, rain. Are you mad that you got 0.6 of an inch instead of a half inch? Because in the wintertime, that could be a difference of a few inches of snow. Forecasting snow is extremely difficult. So nobody is going to be 100% right all the time.
Even the severe weather forecasts are off.
Yep.
We've kind of had our experiences of that this week so far.
Oh, yeah. A lot of moving parts. Is there an average year, or is this an average year for storm severe weather? This is above average, Skylar, so far. For Michigan as well, above average. But we're just getting into our peak season as well as we get to the end of May into June. June is typically our peak season. However, severe weather can occur any month of the year. But June and also the end of May, June, July, August is typically our peak. Excuse me. Can you get tornadoes in the winter or more common in spring and summer? They are much more common in spring and summer. You can get them in the winter, but again, it takes a lot of things to come together.
Mhm.
So, how often do you have like 60s to 70s in the wintertime? Not very often. It's possible. It's happened, but not very often. But if you're referring to that water spout comment I made while we were doing the live storm chasing in the winter, that was mainly because it was a what we call a fair weather water spout, where we have warm lake waters and cold surface air, which can create instability there, and that is what made that water spout. So it wasn't really a tornado, so to speak. It was just kind of from a cumulus cloud and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a difference there. That's a whole nother segment we can get into.
Grand Blank was in end of February. Yep. We were here for that. Live stream is still on our page. If you want to go follow us over on YouTube and watch that coverage, it's there.
We called that like 20 minutes in advance too.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy.
Aaron says 10 inches of snow is equal to an inch of water. That is the average, yes. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less. I learned that at CMU for sure. It's not always 10 to 1. Let's see. Yeah, we'll be here for winter. Everyone's preference for winter storms or summer storms? I like summer storms.
Summer.
I've always been a storm chaser, so that's kind of my thing.
I agree. I will say though, I do prefer cooler weather, just on a personal opinion perspective, but I'm not a snow lover at all.
Mm-hmm.
Is Tornado Alley moving east?
I love this question every time.
Yes and no is my answer. I think we all have different opinions on it. You can look at it from a couple different perspectives. But overall, I think I don't know how to answer this without trying to spark a huge discussion. What do you think, Joel? You have a better way to answer this?
My opinion of Tornado Alley moving, of Tornado Alley is that it's always moving, depending on the the season. So
that's a great point.
I explained this in the previous live stream a couple of days ago, I believe. You have peak seasons for every single region in the United States. So Dixie Alley is usually January through March, and people are always like, "Oh my gosh!" Every time a tornado hits there, it's unheard of. But that's their peak season down there. Is beginning of the year, sometimes into December as well, and then it kind of shifts into the plains for April through June. We kind of start to see those effects as well as it kind of lingers over up here, and then further into the summer you go, it kind of shifts into the high plains, which is like Colorado, and just like the western part of the Great Plains over there. Also the high plain or northern Great Plains is kind of their peak season, so you get it up towards North Dakota, Minnesota, and eventually that stuff. What happens in North Dakota moves over to us the next usually day. And so our peak season usually is end of summer, early fall. So that's like our Tornado Alley is like, here during the end of the summer. But again, we get our seasons that kind of mess around. So to kind of sum it up, it's always changing. And that's kind of always how I've always seen it.
I would agree with that, actually. I really would. It's a great way to put it too, because you could say, oh yeah, you compare this year to that year. Well, different patterns happen different years. So are we La Nina? Is it El Nino? How is your northern Pacific oscillation? How is your, there's so many things that can go into this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Eric, to both of those professors, they're both there.
Did we break the tornado record this year for Michigan or for the USA? Neither, but I will say Ohio is, I think, 6 tornadoes away from their all-time record. They're currently, I think, at 57 or 58. I have not updated. I'm keeping track of all the Great Lakes tornadoes. I have not updated my map in like 10 days. So I got to do that. Last I checked, they were between 57 or 58 or so. And their record, I think, is 64, if I'm not mistaken. Is anybody here going to the Jenison Memorial Day Parade on Monday? Just curious to get a head count if anybody in chat's planning on going. What made you guys want to be storm chasers? We could ask this so many times. So what made me want to be a storm chaser was a combination of multiple things. Number one, I think the main driver was as a child, I had a fear of storms, in particular lightning and thunder. But as I grew older, I just kind of gained like a respect and like I guess kind of got humbled, so to speak. And one night in particular got me really interested, and that was the night of the Dundee tornado, June 5th/6th, 2010. I was with my dad that night, and we were driving back from getting gasoline for the generator. Saw the entire sky light up, purple, pink, red, all sorts of colors. Had no idea what happened. Next morning, wake up. Oh yeah, by the way, Dundee got hit by a tornado. I'm like, what? So after that night, and then shortly after that, the Discovery Storm Chasers series came out, and the connections have all just kind of been made. And ever since then, I've been chasing weather.
Storm chasing kind of just was like an add-on because I've always liked weather. Storm chasing wasn't really like a thing. I kind of, it's been my first grade dream, I guess you could say. And then, once I drove a car, I'm like, well, now I can go out and, see storms for myself. So kind of just took off from there, I guess you could say. So one thing led to another. A lot of questions have kind of piled up here.
Yes, Nicole, this is for tomorrow. The outlook you see on your screen is for Sunday. Okay, so I see a couple people asking about cities and stuff like that. Overall recap of the severe risk tomorrow is number one, it's a low risk. It's conditional on there being instability somehow, some way building into the state. Right now, we don't think that's going to be the case, but we're not going to push it away and say, nah, not going to happen. We're going to keep an eye on things. There are some models trying to show that happening. So we're going to keep an eye on things. If we get instability in the state, there could be a risk for all hazards, tornadoes, wind, and hail. Okay. It's low risk, many moving parts. We'll update tomorrow morning and as the day goes on tomorrow. Highest risk we see currently is down toward the Ohio and Indiana borders, roughly from that 94 corridor down to the borders. But that risk from the SPC does extend all the way up to Grand Rapids, over to Alma, over to Flint, over toward Detroit, and then south. Okay. Timing on that is likely going to be afternoon and evening, 3 p.m., 11 p.m., roughly between that time frame. A lot of moving parts, though. We could have multiple rounds move through. There's just so many things going on here. It's hard to explain all of it. So just between 3 and 11 p.m. tomorrow, stay tuned to the page, your trusted weather sources. Prepare for the worst. Expect, how do you say it? Prepare for the worst, but anticipate. Help me out, Joel. Prepare for the worst, but
I don't know.
I'm trying to think how to end that. Expect the best, but prepare for the worst.
Something like that, yeah. I was about to say something like that.
Hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to convey here.
Montcalm County, you guys are on the edge of the marginal. When I see high altitude clouds moving in from the west, indication of a front coming, yes, or a storm system. Sometimes that can be the anvils moving in. But usually, yes, you do have some sort of front or low pressure system coming in with that. Because again, high pressure is clear weather is associated with high pressure. So we had that today. A lot of high pressure over the Lake Great Lakes. The Storm Prediction Center had the outlook map out today, and if you look at the day one, it's a hole over Michigan, not even like in the thunderstorm category. Because yeah, there you go. So that was today's risk, and there's nothing in Michigan besides a little bit of a thunderstorm risk there. But yeah, that's usually, again, high altitude clouds usually indicative of some sort of front on the way or low pressure system.
Thank you, Aaron. Hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah.
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. There we go, Jess. That's more. That's more what I was trying to say there.
Combining two more questions here. So Eric says, did you guys have Dr. Moore? So I'm the only one here that went to see in this live stream that went to CMU. Dr. Moore is no longer at CMU. So yes. Neither of us have a degree in meteorology, but I should have mine here at the end of the year, knock on wood, because I have one more semester left. So hoping for the best there. Got meso and atmospheric modeling left to do.
Easy stuff. You already know how to forecast mesoscale stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, F5 did hit Flint back in 53. That was Flint Beecher, I believe.
What do you guys? What city you guys? Jenison, Joey. Jenison. We will be in the Memorial Day Parade, 9 a.m. in Jenison. If you guys want to come say hi to us.
Tornadoes still vary in size. Why do you think tornadoes have gotten so wide? Tornadoes they can be drill bits, as we like to call them, so they're only like 50 yards wide. And then you have the wedges, which are like a mile wide. But here in Michigan, our largest tornado this year, I believe, was 900 yards wide, which is about half a mile wide. So
that was Dowagiac, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, the EF1. So again, remember, size doesn't always mean strength. Your EF0 to EF5 scale is dependent on what it's hitting. So if you have a house that's completely slab, that would probably be like EF3, EF4, sometimes EF5, even though we haven't had an EF5 since 2013. But if you're looking at like a house level, it also depends on the construction, stuff like that. And it's a whole thing. So you can have like wedge tornadoes that don't hit anything and it ends up being like EF0. So yeah, so size doesn't necessarily mean damage. Aaron, I was also at that open house. I have a picture with Reed Timmer. Thought that was like 2008, but I guess that was off by a couple years.
Severe weather is really never over in Michigan per se, but when we get into like late October, November, December, and then through the winter, January, February, that kind of. Well, let's go ahead and lump in November, December, January, February is usually our off months. We can still get weather happening there, but typically speaking, that's when it slows down a lot. Sherwood was an EF2, almost EF3, but it was just I want to say it was 130 or 135.
135, yeah.
135 EF2. 1 more mile per hour, it would have been EF3, if I'm not mistaken.
Almost 140.
Was that was Portage, I thought.
I think they both had 135.
I know Portage was for sure. I'll have to look at that. But yeah, either way, though, still significant tornadoes. EF2 plus is considered significant. So.
Mm-hmm. So difference between low pressure and high pressure. So low pressure is you have a lot of convergence at the surface, a lot of things moving into the center, and then low pressure allows for rising motion. So you have like a lifting mechanism, for example, whereas high pressure, a lot of air coming down and diverging out. And that's how you get clear weather, wind coming down, pushing out, no clouds. Usually, sometimes you have fair weather clouds, but that's kind of the difference there. Low pressure, you are looking for storms. High pressure, you're not looking for storms. Kind of just sum it up in a quick sentence there. Slight could be pushed north, but again, you want to remember that any hazard or any risk zone that you're in, even in the general thunderstorm category, just be prepared just in case. We may or may not stream our parade. Last year, it was a lot of people there.
Yeah, how long did that go last year, Joel?
Hour and a half, maybe. It's pretty long. There's a lot of people there. So
okay. Would tornadoes tomorrow have potentially be that significant? Great question. Honestly, really good question there. So it takes a lot of things to come together to get strong type of tornadoes here in Michigan. So the short answer for tomorrow is unlikely. The other answer to that is if we can get a significant amount of instability, at that point, maybe. The wind shear tomorrow does look pretty good, but it takes a lot more than wind shear to get storms, especially strong tornadoes to happen. It takes a lot more than that. So very unlikely tomorrow. Only if we get a very significant amount of instability present, which is highly unlikely.
Mm-hmm. Well, the hurricane is a giant low pressure system, so usually it's a lot of convergence and rising air going on there. I feel like I'm being quizzed because it looks like Eric went to CMU, so he's just like brushing up on what I know. I'm in summer break mode, so give me a little bit of slack here.
What is the best action to take if you live in a mobile home? Best action to take would be drive to the nearest substantial structure.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a Starbucks. That could be even like a Walmart. Anywhere but your trailer, really. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you did.
Did I really?
We could still hear
for
you.
a second on my end. I did.
Yeah, we can still hear you though. Sherwood is 900 yards wide, not feet. So, common misconception is they use yards in their surveys. Again, we don't know yet.
Time.
I was gonna say, yeah, timing. We don't really know yet. We could say anytime after 3, and we're gonna have multiple rounds depending on if instability can rebound in the afternoon after that first round.
Largest Michigan tornado on record. I do not know that one.
Don't know that.
I don't know that. We should know that.
I obviously know like the most significant tornadoes on record being like the F5s that hit, but I'm not like, if you're talking like width, that's usually something I don't really look for. Capping inversion, not really much of an issue tomorrow. Again, that issue tomorrow is going to be how much instability can recover for the afternoon line of storms. Big if. Yeah, I think the Palm Sunday ones in 65 are probably going to be up there because I remember Branch County. I remember that picture came in from the state line where we had like the whole wedge was basically on the ground. You guys could probably look that up on Google. It's like the whole sky is just on the ground at that point. So yeah, I think chat's right. Now, modern tornadoes began recording in 1950 because the word tornado was banned before the year 1950. And so there's only so many tornadoes on record before 1950. Obviously, they have the significant ones, but But we're about an hour into this severe weather briefing, Ryan.
We told ourselves we had on here 20 minutes max.
Yeah.
Now look at us go.
Yeah.
We should just like set aside a day for you guys just to ask us these questions or something, because it seems like we always get asked the same like 10 questions over and over. And then occasionally we'll get thrown one of these questions like, what's the widest tornado? Like, wow. We should just do like a podcast style, just relax, get to know each other type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it is probably time to wrap this up. So I'll dive in one more time for you guys. Pretty simple forecast expectation for tomorrow. So go ahead and dive in one more time for you guys who may not have seen the beginning. So tomorrow we do have this severe risk in place from the SPC. It is a level 1 out of 5 risk. We call it a marginal. It's in dark green. That extends all the way up toward Grand Rapids, over to Flint, down to the border of Indiana and Ohio. Okay. Hazards tomorrow are all hazards. Damaging winds, same exact areas there. Hail, again, same exact areas, and even a tornado or two being possible. Again, big if. All right. Diving into the models, we are more kind of tuned in to what's happening out here to the west in Oklahoma. Thank you, Bob, for becoming a channel member. I want to shout you out really quick. Appreciate your support of the channel. What's happening out to our west is going to dictate what happens tomorrow here. So current thinking is that the line of storms out to the west is going to push our way by early to mid afternoon, arriving here roughly right around 2 p.m. in West Michigan. And it's going to push across the state. And behind it is going to be a destabilizing atmosphere, but to our south. So the initial thinking is that this first line that comes through or should I say right now, the expectation is it should be non-severe. All right. So what that should do, move in, rain, rumbles of thunder. Behind it should be cloud cover, lingering. We call it substance, or is it substance, or what do you call it? There's a word for it.
For what?
Anyway, the behind. Never mind.
Stratiform?
No. I'm trying to. I'm thinking of in-depth terminology. Continuing here. Looking at this line, it comes through early mid-afternoon. Behind it should be cloud cover. We should be stable. Okay. Storms flare up to the south, and they miss Michigan as it pushes across the Ohio River Valley. Two scenarios that may happen, and what we're going to be watching closely is how we destabilize behind this line. If we can destabilize enough in terms of atmospheric instability, we may have a threat develop. Right now, it's not looking likely. Scenario 2 would be this line slows down really far, that we may build instability out ahead of it, and in turn, that line may become severe. That would happen again, roughly that mid-afternoon time frame. So we're going to say between the hours of 2 p.m. and 11 p.m., we could see some type of severe weather. We're not sure exactly when. We're not sure exactly if that's going to be with the first line or potential second line. It's just going to be a matter of when. Okay. Big question is instability. We're not sure what's going to happen. We're going to tune in. We're going to watch these models in real time, watch the data. We're not going to know until we get to tomorrow. Okay. If we get instability, all hazards are possible. Damaging winds, large hail, and a couple tornadoes being possible. But again, it takes a lot more to get severe weather than what we're seeing right now on the models. So play by ear. We'll let you guys know what we're seeing tomorrow morning. Expect briefing updates. Expect posts on the page. That's all I got to share.
Yeah. And I will add that the word tornado was banned because it caused public panic. Simple as that. And it was career suicide if you ever mentioned it on broadcast. So, fun fact, you learned that today.
Tornado.
But I've got nothing else. like what we're doing, like when we do our live streams, we've announced tornadoes on the ground. That would be career suicide back in the Great Depression era.
What link you guys looking for?
I think the Midland Weather Radio one with the Shaker Pack, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
We'll stay live just for that.
While Brian's finding that, if you found any of this helpful or insightful tonight, feel free to drop a like. It helps us. It helps the algorithm. And helps us give back to you guys when we do these things. And so we appreciate any likes. Subscribing on YouTube is free, as well as following the page on Facebook, which you guys are watching on. So any of that helps us greatly. So we appreciate it. And we especially appreciate the members who have joined us over the last couple of weeks as well. So thank you guys very much. Looks like you got the link up in there.
Yep. And then the current weather radio is sold out on Midland, but I'll give you the link here. It's the WR120. Midland WR-120.
I've not met Ernie before.
All right, Joel, you ready to hop off here? You want to keep on going?
I'm ready to head off.
All right. All right, guys. We'll decide here later on this evening if we're going to do a stream. We'll probably be pretty quick. We'll decide if we're going to do a stream for our members and Patreon, Facebook subscribers. So
post an update on Facebook.
We'll post an update to you guys directly if we do it. So if you guys want to tune in, just watch for that update. We may or may not do it. Again, we'll decide here probably within the hour or so. So with that being said, we'll hop off here. You see you guys tomorrow morning on another briefing. We'll keep you guys updated. Stay safe, guys.
See everyone. Have a good night.